evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever the fuck you're tuning in. This is our Week 9 wrap-up edition of Tailgate Trash Talk, brought to you by Backyard Sports. We are plenty past the halfway point of the NCAA season, and we are actually on it's like the week's eve or whatever you want to call it, of our first CFP ranking. So we're going to have a new interesting talking point next week when the first CFP rankings come out next Tuesday, with the whole hubbub of the show that they do on Tuesday night. But I got Bentley with me, man. How you doing?
I'm good. There are lots of things happening here in the United States of America next Tuesday, but paramount amongst them is the college football selection show.
Yep.
So make sure you get out and cast your ballot for who you think should be the number one team in the country, because that's happening next Tuesday.
Well done, sir. Well done. Dad, thanks for joining.
Howdy, howdy.
Well, let's get right to it, man. Week 9, we start off with an absolute shit show Friday night. Or this was Thursday night, I believe. Pitt, Syracuse. Kyle McCord throws 5 picks. 3 of them went for touchdowns. And Syracuse never stood a chance. This is the Kyle McCord. When we talked at the beginning of the season, and I said, like, if we can get good Kyle McCord, the schedule kind of lines up and Syracuse might be able to make some noise. This is the Kyle McCord I was worried about.
Yep.
Pitt's defense is good. I don't want to take anything away from Pitt. They played well. They were at home. Pitt looks like the real deal. They're undefeated still in the ACC. I don't know if they have anything to offer Clemson or Miami, but they do look like they're playing well, and that defense is tough and keeps them in games. What are your thoughts coming out of this? Am I wrong about Pitt? Are they a team to worry about if I'm Clemson or I'm Miami?
I mean, at this point, it's a little tough to say you're undefeated, but you're still kind of fluky, right? Like if you're undefeated this late in the season, you're doing something right. So I would say you have to at least like take some extra time to game plan for a team like Pitt. Excuse me, if you're one of the big dogs in the ACC, right?
Yeah.
But I don't. You give me Pitt against Clemson or Miami. I'm still taking Clemson or Miami.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think the ACC is an interesting case because SMU looks like they are going to continue to win most of their games as well. Big game this weekend, obviously. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But I wasn't with the ACC, like, it always felt like it was kind of Miami and everybody else, but suddenly Clemson looks like they've got an offense that's not on crutches. Pitt's got a really good defense, so maybe there's a team that might creep up on Miami. We saw them struggle against Cal. That was kind of a big deal. So maybe the final weeks here in the ACC will be pretty interesting for sure. All right. Go ahead.
I would say just a shout out to Pitt. That game, we talk often on the show about how games that don't occur on Saturdays can be like weird, freaky things. And then especially with the big game coming up this weekend against SMU, they very easily could have gone in and laid an egg, being like, oh, look, it's a look-ahead spot because we get a short week or an extended week, a mini bye, and then we get SMU. But they did not do that. No. So shout out, credit to them for handling business on a Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of non-Saturday games, Boise played UNLV on Friday night. Ashton Jeanty did not look like the Ashton Jeanty we expect, but I want to give UNLV credit for that. There were like weird social media takes that like UNLV was like cheating or like they should just let Ashton Jeanty run all over them. Like, no, they did their job. And they took away the things that make him great, or at least attempted to, and he still had a fine game. He just didn't have an Ashton Jeanty game that we're used to. But UNLV did their fucking job in a conference game, in a conference that they have a chance to win. And in the new playoff era, the top 5 ranked conference champions get into the playoff. So you definitely want to take this game serious and do everything you can. Not to mention it's fucking Boise State, a nationally televised game. Show up. It was a weird thing to me that like UNLV did their job and game planned and had a good approach for Ginty that other teams haven't been able to really execute on. And I know other teams have attempted. Like Hawaii stacked the box with 25 guys and he still beat the shit out of them. But like UNLV did a good job of at least limiting him from his normally gaudy 250 and 5 tugs. So like kudos to them. Social media was weird Friday when they were complaining about UNLV actually playing a defense to counter the best player in college football.
Yeah. I mean, I told people on the show last week that if anybody was going to draw up a game plan, it was going to be Barry Odom and the UNLV defense, right? And sure, it didn't work out. UNLV had kind of a crucial interception, the only turnover of the game. So it was a pretty clean game on both sides. But like in a game like that, one turnover will kill you, right? It was a one-score game. We saw it at the end. The interception, the interception turned into a touchdown for Boise, so that really ended up being the difference. And I thought that Hodge Blake Williams played pretty well. I know that Boise State defense is not like the most daunting group, but they were in a game against Oregon late, right? Like we can talk about Oregon and their run defense later. I know that they steamrolled, but there are some numbers that might point the other direction. Yeah, like because he averaged 3.9 yards a carry, are we going to say that he now should no longer win the Heisman Trophy? Like that seems foolish. I mean, most guys, maybe not in college, but like he's going to play in the NFL, right? So like if he's averaging 3.9 yards carry for the rest of the year and then going forward in the league, like he's going to be a fucking incredible running back. I mean, sorry he didn't average 11 yards a carry. There were 9 dudes in the box. I don't know what to tell you. They don't really have like a passing offense to hang their hat on. In Boise, he is their offense, right? He ran the ball 33 times.
Yep.
And they got the win. That's what matters. You mentioned it. The top 5 seeded conference champions get an automatic bid, and they keep the train rolling. And I believe they're like a 65% chance.
I think
to make the playoff right now, something like that.
Yep. Yeah, their number's pretty good.
Good for them. Going on the road, getting it done, and in what appeared to be a pretty hostile environment in Vegas on Friday night.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, McCord was tough to watch Thursday night. It was a mess, but. Oregon, yeah, we're going to talk about them in a minute, but I'm with you. There are some things that you certainly look at that could give you pause, but
did Mariota graduate from Oregon? Is that actually his alma mater?
I guess that's a fair statement. I don't know if he ever went back and finished his degree.
It feels like Oregon is just riding off the coattails of his current NFL success. He looked so good against the Panthers. They were like, let's reclaim him,
Yeah. Ohio State, Nebraska, dude. Nebraska had a chance. They had a chance, and I got to give it up for Dylan Raiola. He was nicked up in this game and powered through it. It's not always easy to do that, again, especially against an Ohio State team that cycles. You and I were talking about it. Like they cycle 7 NFL players on that defensive line, right? Like that's a fucking ridiculous defensive line. And Nebraska held their own, and that Nebraska defense played really, really well. And I think we saw in this game some of the similar kind of pockmarks that we saw in the Oregon game with Will Howard in terms of like his limitations when the running game is not chunking the defense. And I felt like Nebraska, honestly, when you come out of this game feeling like Nebraska should probably have won this game, that's a big deal because you're talking a 25-point fucking spread. You're talking a Nebraska team that's clearly in a rebuild. Dylan Raiola is going to probably put that in the express lane because he's, a big-time quarterback recruit. And when you figure that position out, it does a lot of things for the rest of your team. But for them to hang with Ohio State here on the road in the horseshoe, like, what a game from Nebraska. And it feels like, as he always does, we're getting the Matt Rule rebuild in hyperdrive at Nebraska. If they could figure out special teams, which I don't know how it's still a thing. Scott Frost ain't there anymore, but if they could figure out special teams, like this team could easily be like a 1-loss team right now. It's crazy to think.
Certainly. They their only losses this year are to ranked opponents. They probably watched a lot of that Illinois tape from the Indiana tape from last weekend when they got crushed. And Matt Rule kind of, I would assume, I don't know this to be the case, but yeah, I would say he probably got in their ass at practice and said, hey, Like we're going to the shoe. I know that Indiana is rolling, but I personally feel like Ohio State's on a different level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hostile environment. So credit to them. They played really well. They contained that Ohio State running game. They didn't allow a lot of home run plays, which is kind of the downfall of most teams when they play Ohio State, because Ohio State has so many home run hitters. It's just incredible across the board, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you said it. They had a chance. They just true freshman on the road. It's tough to go off and pull an upset like that, and I don't know. They're fun. I'm not sure. They're going to make a bowl this year, which is awesome. I think that next year we're probably looking at them as competitors in the Big Ten. Depending on what happens with, I guess Julian Sand is going to play quarterback next year for Ohio State, but Dylan Gabriel will be gone. Luke Altmaier will be gone. Drew Haller will probably be gone. Like a lot of the big dogs in the Big Ten next year will be switching quarterbacks, whereas Nebraska, they'll be bringing back, a 5-star recruit kid going into sophomore season. So awesome year so far for Nebraska, but like next year is probably the year,
Yep, absolutely. That, to me, that's what it feels like, 2025 in Nebraska. If they can continue to build off this and put weapons around Raiola, I think this could be a real, like you said, a competitor in the Big Ten, but you're looking at probably a fringe playoff team as well, even if they don't win the Big Ten or play in the Big Ten championship game.
Signetti, baby.
Signetti. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, they're fucking rolling in Bloomington.
Why? Question about Indiana. Why have they not given him a contract yet?
Oh my God.
Why?
Just give him all the money. All the money that you can fucking put together.
They're in a recruiting battle against, I think it's Georgia and Oregon for a 5-star quarterback next year. I mean, why would you not sign Signetti if for no other reason did he get that quarterback like in the building?
Ability,
yeah, I don't know why they haven't paid him yet. That's crazy.
Because they're not a football school and they don't understand, I guess. I don't know. Jesus.
I don't know.
Something.
They can afford it. I promise you that.
Yeah. For sure. Question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How concerned are you now that we've seen Ohio State lose to Oregon and this game against Nebraska? Do you think it was, I guess, how concerned are you, or do you think it was a look ahead to their trip to Happy Valley?
My level of concern rises and falls with the health of their left tackles. Sure. They were playing a third-string left tackle against Nebraska on Saturday.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's not great. I understand that their offensive linemen are not the best. I came on the show and said that Ohio State was going to win the national title this year. I did not take into consideration that their offensive line would not get any better as the year went along. So that's not great. I don't love that. But I really think that's kind of the only limitation of this team. I get that their quarterback is not awesome, but he's good. He's very he's very good, right? But like you need a top tier offensive line if you're going to make a deep run in the 12-team playoff and win a national title. That's just how it works, right? And currently they do not have an elite offensive line. They have a good offensive line. It's not
next year. It'll probably be an elite offensive line.
Probably. You and I talked. Better, well, yeah, true. They may need a new offensive line coach, but
yeah, something.
You and I talked about how young that offensive line actually is this week, and it's a little surprising if you go and look at that roster.
It's crazy. This is a good question. I
have an answer.
Okay.
Because there's a bigger game Saturday night at 7:30 on ABC. There's a much more important game Saturday night.
We're gonna get to that.
This game should be a whiteout though.
I don't know why it's not a whiteout. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Maybe you don't flex it because it's kind of the window they want it in or whatever. But I don't know why they're not waiting it out at Happy Valley. I don't get it. Anyway,
they're trying to give Penn State every advantage they can, and if it was a whiteout game, they're for sure going to lose.
Yeah, that's fair. We are going to get we'll talk about it, but we are getting a battle of attrition when it comes to the two coaches involved in that game. But we'll get to that in a moment. Notre Dame Navy, and we've been on kind of a high. At least I've been on kind of a high with Navy. You've been on a high, and you're still on your high with Army. We've talked a lot about the service academies, being a Navy vet and an Army vet. Navy laid an egg here, though. 6 turnovers. They had turned it over once throughout the entire season to this point. It started early and it just kept going, and it felt like the snowball was just rolling down the hill, and Notre Dame basically coasted to a fucking 100-point win. And I mean, if they played another 60 minutes, they'd have won by 100. It was crazy. Just the sheer avalanche that it was. And Navy's got a different style of offense. So like I had a little faith as a couple of bad bounces happened early. I was like, I think the offense can kind of get back in this thing if they can get a stop. They never got a stop after a turnover, and it just continued to fall apart on them. Still a fun story. They still could theoretically make a playoff if they can make a run and find a way to get into that top 5 ranking as a conference champion. But this is a big, big knock on any sort of resume for Navy. And I think it kind of exposed the fact too that like this has been a really fun story, scoring 45 points a game coming into this game. They also were playing like nobody, right? They hadn't really played a serious schedule to this point. So I think this exposed that a little bit. But once that train started rolling down the tracks, it was over.
Yeah, the game was 14-0, like before you could even turn it on.
Right.
You know, and it's like as awesome. And I said it last week, and you agreed with me that in order for Navy to pull this upset, they had to score every time they touched the ball.
Yeah.
And that just was not the case. Yeah. And their defense, suspect at times, they just couldn't do anything with that Notre Dame offense.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, Gary has left the show, apparently. That's okay. I'll take over. It's probably better that he's not here anyways. Oh, wait, he's back. All right, everybody be quiet. Nothing happened.
Yeah, I got this stupid fucking back button on my mouse, and I just found a way to hit it.
We definitely didn't say anything bad about you while you were gone.
I'm sure. I'm sure it was all deserved anyway. And we get to Coach Signetti, the Sig 10. Indiana rolls against Washington. They keep the train rolling. I don't know how much more we can give praise to what Indiana's doing. It's wild to think that this perennial basketball school that's had like an upstart player here and there in the football sphere is just killing it in the Big Ten. Coach Signetti's he's doing what he does. He went to James Madison last year, won a ton of games. He's won every game at Indiana this year, got him rolling in the Big Ten. Now, I know they've got some opponents coming up. They've got Michigan still on the slate. They've got Ohio State on the slate. But this is fun to fucking watch for now.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Again, I don't know why they don't pay the guy. He went out and beat a Washington team who beat Michigan, who at the time was the top 10 team. So they beat Washington with a backup quarterback. Their top guy was not going this weekend, and nothing changed. They were just as good as they've been all year long, right?
Yep.
Somebody asked me this week, does Indiana have NFL talent on their roster? I think the answer is no.
I think you're right.
The backup quarterback is 6'4". I just had it up. Where's he at? He's a big kid. Taven Jackson, 6'4", 212. So, like, true sophomore. I mean, maybe if he plays really well next year, I don't know if he could play himself into it. But, like, I went up and down that roster, and I've watched a fair number of their games this year. I don't really see it. They're just a really, really good team. They're a really, really good college team. Like, that's the case. And we talked about it early in the year, right? Like, the formula of what he did was he came from JMU, like you mentioned. He brought, like, 12 dudes with him. And then he signed a bunch of guys from small-time D1 colleges who had played a ton of games.
Yep.
And he kind of melded them all together, and now they're just a really good college team who may not put guys in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the reverse of
call that a shotgun.
Yeah.
A cigarette shotgun, of course.
Yeah,
FBI guy.
Of course.
I know you're out there.
Oh. All right, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. I took the points with Oklahoma because I'm at the point I don't know that I trust Ole Miss to steamroll teams. I don't know what's going on down there in Oxford, but they don't look like the team that was scoring 50 a game. Now, I get it. Early in the season, they didn't have the toughest out of conference schedule, but I would have expected if we were going to see Ole Miss kind of turn this thing around toward the end of the season, that I would have been wrong about this, but I wasn't. This was a 12-point win, I believe is what the final margin was, but it felt like Oklahoma was never really out of reach in this game. Very strange game. I'm not really sure what's going on down there in Oxford. It just seems like they're just not quite like they're it's like they're running on 7 cylinders or something down there. Jackson Dart is not as sharp as he was early in the season. The defense is good, not great. The wide receiver room I know is a bit nicked up, but it just I don't know. Lane doesn't seem to be able to kind of scheme it up X's and O's. I'm not sure what to expect from the Rebs going forward.
Well, Trey Harris did not play in this game.
Yeah.
And it was a tale of two halves, right? So I understand what you're saying about them not drawing it up X's and O's style. This felt like an adjustment game to me, right? They came in, Trey Harris not playing the first half. They were losing at halftime.
Yep.
And then they came out and they scored 14 unanswered in the second half. And it's like, okay, we see what Oklahoma's doing. We have to adjust at halftime without Trey Harris, their number one wide receiver. And then they made it happen in the second half. If they had come into the game with the same game plan as their second half, I probably would have won my bet there. But obviously that did not happen. And credit to Oklahoma. They played super hard in the first half. I had a very, very long conversation with an Oklahoma fan this weekend who said that they need to fire Brent Venables. And I was like, I get the frustration. I do. I totally understand it. High promises coming into the year, moving to the SEC. But they were down at 1.5 wide receivers. And
how many wide receivers
linemen.
do you even have on a roster?
I
and they're
know.
Missing their 5 top guys.
Yeah, I think they had 2 of them back this week. But regardless,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, you're playing backups of backups at that point, right? Like, so it's just the year from hell for Oklahoma, man. Like the injury bug has bit them hard.
Yep.
And they were never the most talented team in the country. Jackson Arnold.
They're not sure what's going on.
Maybe not the guy. Like,
yeah.
But I'm giving them a pass because they've had so many injuries. It's been insane.
I will tell you the one big reason why you can't fire Brent Venables with what's going on this year. You mentioned it, the injury bug, but they continue to go out there and compete, and they are so undermanned. It's wild, and they still go out there. They play hard. They were never out of this game. And like you said, they had a lead at half. Like it was, you can't fire Brent Venables over this. You had a good season last year. It's your first year in the SEC. Like, give the guy a chance. Fuck's sake. You're playing a different level of competition in the SEC.
Yep.
All right. Oregon, Illinois. Both of us had faith that Illinois was going to be able to drag Oregon down in the mud a little bit. Didn't happen.
Nope.
This thing was, they were covering before the half, and Illinois, they ended up getting 9 points out of this thing to not get shut out, but not great. Here's my question, and it's in my caption. Is it Oregon and everyone else? Because I will tell you, after the Ohio State game and what I've seen them do to continue that momentum from then, and just beating the dog shit out of what you and I both agreed was a tough, frisky, kind of slow you down, grind you out Illinois team, it's starting to feel like it's Oregon and everybody else right now.
Here's why I don't think it's Oregon and everyone else. Ohio State was a true freshman getting flagged for OPI on a dig route call away from having a field goal to either tie or take the lead. I forget exactly. It was where's the Ohio State game? To take the lead, right? Because they won that game by a point. So they're 32-31. So they're a true freshman making a boneheaded play on what's kind of a judgment call away from having a chance to lose that game to Ohio State. They also, we talked earlier about how Ashton Jeanty just ate them up on the ground, almost single-handedly beat them by himself. that was back when we were questioning the offense of Oregon because they weren't really like lighting it up at the time. Now their offense is clicking on just about all cylinders. And they still gave up 4 yards of carry on the ground, 5.8 and 5.4 yards per carry to the top two running backs for Illinois. Now, how much of that has to do with Illinois being in like must-pass situations because they're down so much and Oregon's just playing off ball? Sure, you could talk me into that. That's fine. But like Ohio State had success running the ball. Ashton Genty had success running the ball. Illinois had a semblance of success running the ball against this Oregon team. There will come a time where I think that they're going to have to stop the run, and they may not be able to do so, right? And if Jeremiah Smith doesn't get that OPI call, Ohio State has a kick to win the game. So I'm very, very hesitant. I understand why Nebraska or why Oregon is number one. They wholeheartedly deserve to be the top ranked team in the country. But I'm not ready to say it's Oregon and everyone else. I'm not there yet.
That's fair. Yeah, they're going to have to stop the run late in the season, playoff time for sure. Big Ten championship, they're probably going to see Ohio State again, and they're going to have to stop the run. If it's not Ohio State, Penn State likes to run the ball. If Penn State somehow gets by Ohio State and handles business, so they're going to face a team that wants to run the ball at them. So for sure, that's definitely a question going forward. All right, UCF BYU. I foolhardily had faith in UCF after watching the game the previous week, and it looked like Gus Malzahn was starting to figure out the offense. And nope, I was wrong. BYU bullied the shit out of them. BYU is the real deal, and the Big Ten is going to be interesting in terms of who's going to come out of that. But right now, it does feel like maybe it's BYU. That has kind of the fast track, the inside track. I know, obviously, if they win out, whatever, but they do feel like maybe the best team in the Big Ten right now, or Big 12. I mean,
yeah, I mean, anytime Patrick Shaloms is behind center and throwing passes for your team, like you don't bet against that guy,
The number of nicknames coming out, it's so good, so good.
BYU is great, and he sells T-shirts, but Patrick Shaloms is hands down my favorite. Love that. We talked about it. At some point after our show last week that you admitted finally that BYU is the correct pick, and you were like, I guess I understand like why I made my selection. And I was like, yeah, that was the most confusing line to me. I didn't I understand that UCF went to Ames and kind of put it on Iowa State. They lost that game still, but like they're not great. They got bullied by a Colorado team, at home. And then you get BYU, who you and I have both talked extensively about how they just kind of steamroll over opposing defenses. And that's exactly what happened in Orlando. I mean, probably the best team, the team that is playing the best in the Big 12 right now, went and handled business like they were supposed to.
Yep. For sure. That was a terrible pick by me.
I just didn't understand the line.
I didn't understand the line either.
I don't that's crazy to me.
Yeah. I fooled myself into believing UCF had figured it out against Iowa State.
Tough.
Bama, Missouri. Is Bama back? That was a fucking absolute beatdown. And I know Brady Cook missing time. Drew Pine is an embarrassment to the quarterback position. But Bama looked pretty good. Now, are you going to diminish the bounce back because they didn't have Brady Cook? Or do you believe again in Bama?
I never stopped believing in Bama.
Okay.
I have a ticket for them.
I know a lot of people were out on
man.
that.
Yeah, a lot of people are cool. Kalen DeBoer is a very good football coach. People, if you have Alabama football stock and you are selling it, hit my line. I will buy all of it. I will buy it all. That's fine. And if we are on this show in 3 years and I am dead wrong, I will admit it. That's fine. I have no issue doing that. I'm not a very smart person. I have no problem being wrong. But I am firmly in the camp of Kalen DeBoer as a good coach, and Alabama will be just fine.
Yeah. for sure. That's the right take. Spent a lot of time talking this offseason about how they had made their decision in 3 days, and we thought it was the right decision. It was a good hire. It was a good hire.
Yep.
Everybody was kind of in and out, and in the Georgia game, everybody, one half to the next, that sort of thing. But they lost to two good teams too, right? Like Vanderbilt, everybody sees the name and they're like, not Vanderbilt. That's a good team. They're competitive. They're going to play hard. And Tennessee, they're fucking number 11 in the nation right now. And they played in Knoxville and they played in Nashville against those two teams. So,
Yep.
yeah, I agree. I think Bama's just fine, but that was an interesting eye opener. I didn't expect it to be 34-0, but again, Brady Cook didn't play. Unfortunately for Brady Cook, it's going to mar his last season there in the other Columbia.
Yep.
Let's see. There's something I was going to point out. Oh, the SEC is interesting this year too because Bama has 2 losses, and in a normal season, like that's the death knell in the SEC. Your ticket's not dead.
No,
because there's only one undefeated team left. That's Texas A&M. I don't know how much faith people have in Texas A&M. I love their defense. I love their defensive line, especially. But you look at like Georgia looks mortal, Texas looks mortal, Tennessee looks mortal, LSU. Like you need it to be kind of like a tiebreaker situation because if you're only head to head against Tennessee, you lose that. But you get that 3-way tiebreaker, you might be all right. But Alabama's not dead, man. People were jumping off the boat after they lost to Tennessee, but I'm with you. It's hard to doubt the boys in T-Town, but also Kalen DeBoer is a good coach for sure.
LSU should have 2 SEC losses.
They should.
I just want that on the record.
100%.
They should have lost to South Carolina.
Absolutely.
Honestly, should have Bama, but whatever.
Legitimately. Weird circumstances.
College kickers, baby. Shout out.
College kickers, man. Speaking of them boys in Nashville, Vanderbilt hosts Texas, and Texas doesn't cover. And Texas had me fucking wrapped around the goddamn screw this weekend. Like, I hope they fucking lose outright. They looked terrible. Quinn Ewers looked awful. And I know, again, I just said it, Vanderbilt's not your slightly older brother's Vanderbilt, but golly, Texas looked fucking terrible for large chunks of this game. I'm gonna take back something I said earlier as kind of a quip earlier in the season that like if Texas goes on to win the national championship with Quinn Ewers, how good to them boys in Austin feel that they have Arch Manning waiting in the wings? I don't think they can win a national championship with Quinn Ewers. I'm so hard out on Quinn Ewers right now. He has regressed over the last 3 to 4 weeks. I know he got hurt and maybe he's still dealing with some after effects of that, but I don't like what I see from him on the field. He looked terrible in the loss. They benched him in the loss. And he didn't look good at all this weekend. I just don't know that this team can win a title with Quinn Ewers under center.
Sure. This Texas team is not as good as the Texas team last year.
Sure.
They
put 3 wide receivers in the NFL
and 2 defensive tackles
and
yep. Their top running back, and then lost their top running back at the beginning of the year to an ACL injury.
Yep.
They just are not as talented as they were last year, and they were relying on Quinn taking the step up. Quinn has been fine. There was a stretch in this game. You said he looked awful. I didn't see that game and think he looked awful. Like he was 19 for 21 at a certain stretch in that game, right? Like was he?
It was all at the line of scrimmage, though. It was
sure.
Dink dunk and any other, and he was. I don't know. I didn't like
look.
what I saw.
I mean, we saw the end of that game, right? Vandy scored a super late touchdown, had to go for the outside kick, right? If they don't score that touchdown and it's a 10-point game, do we still think Texas looks awful because they only won by 10 in Nashville? Like,
the eyeball test, I didn't like what I saw. I don't know.
Totally fair. I mean, I get it. They're not crushing teams. They're not blowing people out. They got dog walked by Georgia. That happens, right? I don't see a reason why. Like, I'm kind of in the camp that Quinn is still dealing with whatever nagging injury he had, right?
Maybe that's it.
The Georgia game was kind of an anomaly. like they benched him and then they brought him back, but Georgia's defense played out of their minds. I mean, that's just a hard fought SEC game. Like those are things that happen. They happen every single year, multiple times a year. We saw Georgia Bama play one of those earlier. Like, I don't see a reason why Texas couldn't win the national title, provided Quinn plays as well as he did last season, which would mean playing better than he currently is.
Yeah.
Um, so I have to believe that he's going to be better than he's currently playing. Um, I watched that game and like I never thought that Vandy had a chance to win. You know, I wholly convinced that they were going to cover, but I didn't watch that at any point thinking, man, Texas is letting it slip away, or like, man, one or two plays here and like Vandy could make this happen. I just didn't get that feeling when I watched the game. I don't know. It was maybe I'm higher on Texas than you. That's just what it sounds like, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Man, the eyeball test told me Quinn was fucking like a deer in headlights a lot of times. He was dumping balls down when there wasn't pressure in the pocket, and he just, I don't know. I just felt like he isn't the guy he was last year. That's for damn sure.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Onward to Miami, Florida State. Miami beat the hell out of Florida State. Here's the bad beat I was telling you about this weekend. I had a funny story for the show.
Okay.
So we pick our picks on Wednesday night. Lines do shift. Yeah, and we've talked about that, Corey, a little bit. The NIL changes things, and the transfer portal. You're starting to see a lot more talent spread out. You're also We've talked a lot about not seeing 5 stars waiting behind 5 stars. Arch Manning is really like the exception, right? For a guy that could have transferred probably anywhere he wanted to in the country with very few exceptions to go and be the starting quarterback. For him to stay and sit behind Quinn Ewers is kind of the exception under the new NIL and transfer portal rules. But so back to my bad beat. So we picked this on Wednesdays. It's 21 points. Saturday morning, it's like 21 and a half or something along those lines. I'm getting ready to put in a ticket because I believe this was in the 3:30 or the 4 o'clock slot. I had a good noon window, and I go to put this in, and it's literally moments after kickoff. And Miami has the ball, and they're moving the ball down the field, and the line has moved to 26.
Oh.
And I'm like, I shouldn't bet this live, right? I shouldn't bet this live, but I think Miami's going to win by 4 touchdowns, and I'll be perfectly fine, right? So this game gets late, and Miami ends up scoring a touchdown to go up by 20. What the hell? 29, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then Florida State fucking right down the field, and Miami covers the original 21, so I get it right on the show. But I lose actual money because I bet it at 26 on Saturday. I knew better than to bet it live, but I fucking bet it live and paid the price for it.
That's tough.
However, Miami did what you would expect them to do against this Florida State team. The only part was the late touchdown and whatnot, but obviously you check out. This was a thorough dismantling of a bad Florida State team. This is a game that you start to feel like, is Miami starting to kind of put all of the pieces together here to make that run into an ACC championship and take that momentum into the playoff? Are they a threat for maybe making a run at a national title, right? I don't know that I would pick them to win a national title, but they've got the pieces in place if they can get all 3 phases playing at the same time that, why not them? You know what I mean? And this is one of those games that makes you kind of think that, because they really outclassed Florida State thoroughly in this game.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they outgained them by 200 yards, and they more than doubled them up on first downs in the game. I'd like to see them force a few more turnovers on the defensive side of the ball if you're going to make a deep playoff run, but maybe that happens. Maybe their defense steps up. Cristobal, get the guys rallied. Yeah, like, again, I have a ticket for them to win the ACC. This has been my team all year long. Like Last year it was Texas is back. I was on the Texas bandwagon. This year I was in on Ohio State and I was in on Miami, and I'm still rocking with them, but I'm leaning a little more towards Miami at this point. I still think Ohio State's really good. They could absolutely win a national title. But yeah, I mean Miami's just really good, and as long as they have Cam Ward and Damian Martinez and like two of their wide receivers,
Yeah,
preferably Restrepo, but
Shrefo,
like
yeah.
I think they make it tough for anybody, right?
Yeah.
They Cam Ward puts so much pressure on his defense from every aspect,
Yeah.
and then they just give it to their battering ram in Martinez, and he runs guys over, right? Like
Yeah.
they have a winning formula and they've stuck to it. And sure, have they squeaked out some games? Absolutely. One was a super late night game
On the West Coast.
on the West Coast, and then a Thursday night game in Blacksburg. We know that those are, or maybe it was a Friday, but I think it was a Thursday.
It was a non-Saturday. I believe it
Yeah,
was Thursday, but
I think it's a Thursday because they always host a Thursday night game at Blacksburg, and those are always tough. Enter Sandman is playing, and the crowd gets hyped. But Miami's really fucking good, man. They're really good. They have an incredible quarterback. I see no reason why they cannot win the ACC.
Yep, absolutely. Agreed. Yeah, this is maybe the number one confusing storyline of college football, with one exception. They went and brought in DJ Uiagalelei. That was mistaken. And I know that I shouldn't say I know that, but I doubt that he was their first pick in terms of who they would like to bring in. I know they were in on Cam Ward. Ohio State was in on Cam Ward. There were a number of teams that obviously Cam Ward was kind of the crown jewel of the transfer portal at the quarterback position. But it does feel like all of the momentum that they gave away at the beginning of the season with how badly DJ played in those early games, losing to Georgia Tech, losing to Boston College, like it was an ugly start, and it's just continued to be ugly. They brought in so many like studs in the transfer portal. Not like DJ was a 5-star high school guy, so you still look at that as like pedigree, but it's like they brought in the running back from Alabama. Is it Harris? Not Harris.
I know who you're talking about. His name is escaping me. Hold on, I'll tell you.
Miller, not Miller. Jam Miller's the current running back at.
I got you. Hang on. I got
But
you.
they had brought in a number of guys.
Tim Davis.
Davis. They brought in a number of guys and thought this was kind of going to be their year after the undefeated season last season, prior to bowl season. But it just
Roydell Williams, not Cam Davis. Yeah,
Roydell. That's right. But yeah, it's been a mess. It's been a mess. Do you think Norvell is going to survive the offseason? Are they going to stick with him and bring him back for next year and just say, like, well, 2024 was a lost year. We're going to stick with our guy?
100%.
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah. I think if they were going to fire him, it would have happened by now.
Yeah, my answer is solely based on the fact that they don't want to pay $73 million buyout.
Yeah, that's fair. Plus, they already got the – damn, his buyout's that fucking big.
It's huge.
Holy
it's big.
Shit.
Yeah.
He did just get an extension, though, so that makes some sense. Plus, they've got the fucking number of millions they're going to have to pay the ACC once that lawsuit finalizes. So, not a lot of money left in the kitty there if they fire their coach.
Yeah. They're waiting on that revenue sharing money to hit next year.
Yeah, because Florida State's a traditional powerhouse and a lot of, go back to Bobby Bowden, but like not exactly a NIL rich school. I wouldn't consider them.
No.
So
and they did well in the portal, like you said, but they also sent a lot of guys to the league last year.
They did. They
sent a lot of talent to the league.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get a lot of changes in the bowl games, but everybody wants to get those big names into their bowls, as big a name as they can get. Those programs. The playoff changes a lot of things though, because like used to end up with like a number of teams that were like fringe New Year's Six teams that would end up getting bowl games, and now the home games that a lot of those teams that would have been fringe or even in New Year's Six games, they're going to host the first round of the playoffs, and half of those teams are going home. So you're not going to get those brands that in some of these bowl games. And I know it's new era college football, whatever, but it does kind of cheapen some of like the guys you used to see in like the Duke's Mayo Bowl and the Beef O'Brady's Bowl. Like used to be interesting to see some of these guys.
Quest Tire Care Bowl.
Right.
The Pop-Tart Bowl.
Pop-Tart Bowl. Yep, for sure.
The Fritos Bowl.
Yep. Onward to Penn State and Wisconsin. I fully understood why you picked this. I don't yet trust Wisconsin and what they're doing up there. They're very Jekyll and Hyde, and we got whichever one is the bad one out of Jekyll and Hyde this weekend. Penn State ended up with their backup quarterback playing. You said it earlier, so I'm going to give you credit for it, but he might be better than Drew Aller in this system. They looked pretty competent on offense with him running the show. I don't know that he's going to supplant Aller as the starting quarterback if Aller's healthy, but he looked pretty good, and you're going to see him next year potentially running this offense. So Penn State looked good in a spot that they could have easily been looking ahead because Ohio State comes to town this week. But they handled business against Wisconsin up in a tough environment. I mentioned last week, I said friendly and I meant familiar. They've played up in Madison quite a bit. You kind of understand how to handle that. And I just don't know that I don't trust yet what Wisconsin is building up there. It's a very drastic change from the traditional Wisconsin that we know.
Certainly. Bo Prebula. Oh my God.
What a name.
Yeah. No, I said that he fits the system better because they brought over the offensive coordinator from Kansas last year, right?
Yep.
And he was working with Jalen Daniels and Jason Bean.
Yep.
Who are two they're option quarterbacks, right? They do a lot of quarterback runs, some design quarterback runs. They move the pocket a lot. And you just don't get that with Drew Aller. Drew Aller is a phenomenal quarterback, right? He's probably going to be a Sunday guy. But Bo came in, and I thought I was watching Trace McSorley play all over again, honestly. Like, he wears the same number, looks exactly like Trace McSorley with the helmet on. Yeah. And so that's why I said that, right? And I think that Aller is probably the actual better quarterback. And if you're going to run the traditional Penn State pro-style offense, then you play Drew Aller. But,
sure.
but when Bo came in, they were able to do a few more things on the field.
I had to sneak that in there.
I saw someone left a comment, but my microphone is blocking that from where I'm sitting. Okay. Yeah, so Bo came in, and I thought that they were able to do a couple more things to add like another wrinkle to the offense that Wisconsin just wasn't ready for. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're ready for in Wisconsin, but they weren't ready for that.
Yeah. I agree. It's just a weird transition up there in Wisconsin, and that was the big reason for me laying the points. But yeah, I agree. I think if Penn State's going to embrace this kind of dual threat quarterback option style of offense, he definitely is the better option. But I just don't think they're going to go away from Aller. If Aller's, I don't know if Aller's going to be healthy this weekend though. That'll be interesting to kind of see as we progress because it's only Wednesday, but they're still saying like they're not sure. So we'll see. It might be them just gamesmanship, and he might be perfectly fine for this weekend.
Yeah, I would assume, if I had to guess, because it's happened before in the past, we see both of them.
Maybe.
They've run packages for Bo all year long. But really, I think this game comes to, and we can talk about it in the next segment, but whether or not they can guard big number 44 from Penn State, who, again, bad with names, as we just saw.
Yeah.
But yeah, big number 44 converted he's like if Taysom Hill, it's not original credit, I'm stealing it from someone, but it was if George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk had a baby, it would be number 44 from Penn State.
I like that. I called him kind of Chris Cooley, but
yeah,
I like that. Kittle and Juszczyk, he's kind of that versatile Swiss Army knife. Tyler Warren, by the way, is the name, but
yes, Tyler Warren, thank you.
He plays fucking every position. Like, he's lined up under center. He's lined up as the center. He's lined up at wide receiver, tight end, H-back, tailback, all that. We'll give this a moment to marinate, but
I just talked about how they're putting a running quarterback in, so it leaves a little less pressure on the offensive line. They can move the pocket and run quarterback options. And now we're talking about the center being the star of the team. Relax. Tyler Warren is the best player on that team. Calm down here. Calm down here. Oh my god.
Oh man.
Center talk. Save that for tomorrow.
Yeah. Yep. Onward. A&M LSU. I thought this was going to come down to the ball being on a kicker's foot at the end of this game. It did not. A&M looks really, really good. LSU maybe showed a little bit of their deficiencies. But A&M's got a big one this weekend. A&M is still the only undefeated team in the SEC after this past weekend. So talk to me. What does this LSU game tell you about Texas A&M going forward?
Texas A&M's defense is very good, and I have no idea how they lost to Notre Dame. They had Garrett Nussmeier, to steal a quote from NFL, seeing ghosts out there, right? Shout out Sam Darnold, MetLife. Yep. Nussmeier did not look great. He had moments where he was very good. We've talked a little bit of like early draft, not projections, but like who could be a Sunday guy, and I still think Nussmeier could be that guy because of all the quarterbacks I've watched in the SEC, he throws with the most anticipation. He throws guys open regularly, and he can make every throw, right? So I still think Nussmeier is good, but boy, did they have him shaking in his boots on the sidelines and behind center on Saturday night. That A&M defense is for real.
Oh yeah.
They might have a quarterback problem.
They might.
Your favorite quote: "If you got two, you don't have any."
Yeah.
Marcel Reed came in and ran all over the place.
Yep.
So credit to him for that. But like, is that sustainable? I don't know.
Might find out this weekend, I guess. Against a very good defensive line.
We might have something formed down there in South Carolina. Might have a couple somethings formed down there in South Carolina.
One more thing I want to kind of give flowers to Garrett Nussmeier for is like he's not playing with the typical talent on the offensive side of the ball that we've seen at the skill position.
Sure.
Down in LSU. You talk guys like Neighbors and Beckham and Jefferson and Chase and all those names and all the running backs, CEH and Fournette and all those guys that have been skill position guys on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know who's that guy on this LSU team. I know they feel really good about a couple of their guys, but I don't know that I would say that like Nussmeier is playing with the same deck of cards that some of the previous LSU quarterbacks have been playing with.
Sure, they have two guys that really like, and Aaron Anderson and Kyron Lacey, but currently they are not to the level of the slew of receivers that you just mentioned.
Yep, for sure.
You have $4, you have $1. That is how math works. Yep. It's just the dollar. Maybe Navy should have tried the dollar back offense on Saturday. Maybe. They wouldn't have turned it over 6 times.
Maybe.
Not the only team to turn it over 6 times on Saturday.
Yeah, that's fair. They need to give BK a call.
Sure.
Kansas State, Kansas in a little bit of a surprise here. Kansas was in this thing late. Kansas State had to hold on to survive. Not their best performance. They had been kind of clicking lately the last few weeks, starting to look like they were a serious contender at the top of the Big 12. This doesn't mean they're not, but they didn't look the part this weekend against a Kansas team that hasn't been anything that we thought they would be coming into this season.
No, certainly not. They gave their head coach a big extension to stick around, and then they lost our offensive coordinator to Penn State, and they just haven't been the same, right? Like, as good as Lance Leipold is, turns out that having an offensive coordinator who can draw up a scheme for your uber talented quarterback kind of matters in football, right? Shout out to them for sticking in this game. It was incredibly fun. The fourth quarter was a bit of a slog, but like the game overall was fun. Ton of offense, a lot of first downs from these teams. Some explosives on each side. It was a fun game to watch, and I think the correct team won. Obviously, I picked K-State to cover, but like I just think Kansas State is good, and I don't think that Kansas is as bad as their record would indicate.
Sure.
So
yep.
I'm glad it was a fun game. It was super awesome, but I feel like the correct team won, even though they had to do it in come from behind fashion.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. Duke SMU finishes out the week. I laid the points with SMU. You correctly called that Duke is one, feisty, two, well coached, but also being at home. The boys down in Durham got it going. Solid showing by them. SMU seems to be a team that's going to continue some of this momentum in the ACC, but losing Elko last year to Texas A&M, I thought it might have been a bit of a death blow to this Duke program, but they hired very well. Manny Diaz is a guy we've seen have some success at other places, but also kind of flop at other places. He seems to have a nice direction for this Duke program to sustain some of the success that we saw them have under old Mike Elko previously.
Yeah.
Good call by you, taking the points against a smooth team that came in with a lot of momentum.
Yeah, I mean, SMU almost lost. They blocked a field goal at the end of regulation, avoid the loss, force overtime, and then they stopped Duke on the dreaded go for two, man. Like you and I talked about this. That's such a tough decision to make, and I'm so thankful I don't ever have to make that type of decision, man. Like, there have been points in my life when I've had to make very important decisions that involve real life things, right? But they were less stressful than even just thinking about, do I go for two in overtime? I mean, dear God, it makes me sweat just sitting here thinking about it now. Like, I know the numbers say go for two, but like, dear Lord, there's so many things that could go wrong on any given play. It's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Like,
for sure.
Credit to Manny Diaz though. He had them boys rocking. I believe it was homecoming weekend there in Durham. Like, and they showed out. I mean, that you talked about a good direction for what he's building there in Durham, and a historic school such as that with just a long lineage of all-time coaches. I'm mainly talking about Steve Spurrier, but regardless, a lot of good coaches. Maybe Mike Elko will be the next one to move on from Duke and be super successful elsewhere. But yeah, good for them. I got to pick right. They almost won outright. I think I said they were a live dog.
You did say they were
last week on the show.
You almost nailed that. I mean, they were a live dog, right? But
you
almost nailed them getting the win there. So for sure. All right, well that covers the top 25 slate. What you got off the board for us?
Oh my God, off the board, Gary! You put me on the spot here, guy. Put me on the spot. I'll find one for you. BK, who won the Yale Harvard matchup or Yale whatever that was matchup last weekend? My off the board. This one's actually pretty. I'm a little surprised. Well, I guess not because they're on a bye this week. Colorado continues to win. Colorado, I don't know if you know this, Colorado leads the Big 12 in sacks on the season.
Yeah.
So you and I talked at the very beginning of the season how Deion Sanders at Media Day gave a press conference and they asked him about his offensic line, and he immediately deflected answering that question and just talked about his defensive line. And then they asked him about like recruiting and some other stuff, and he immediately talked about his defensive line. And then they asked him about his defensive line, and he immediately talked about his defensive line. And it's like, yeah, we got it, dude. You have a defensive line. But it's finally coming to fruition, right?
Yeah.
They are playing so much better at this point in the season than I ever anticipated that they would. Their offensive line is playing a lot better. They found a run game there in Colorado that's a little surprising, if I'm being truthful. And again, like I said, they're leading the Pac-12 in sacks, which is tough to do when Shiloh Sanders is playing safety because it's like playing with 11 men on the field at all times. But regardless, they're playing super, super good. Or super, super well, I should say. Again, I'm a little surprised that we're not talking about him this week. because I thought that they might get a bump into the rankings.
They're ranked. They just have a bye.
Are they? Did
Yeah,
I
they're
miss
on a
that?
bye.
Oh yeah, they're 23. Yeah, I knew they were on a bye. Okay, I just didn't. I will say, strangely enough, I have not paid a close attention to the rankings this year. Not as much as I had in years past because they don't matter as much, right? Because half the teams in the top 25 are going to be in the playoff.
Yeah.
I do think Notre Dame is still ranked too high. That's just they're above Clemson and Indiana, which is crazy to me. But whatever. But that's my off the board. Shador Sanders went down for a minute in that game with a little bit of an injury, but he came back. Travis Hunter always a fun player to watch. I believe he won Offensive Player of the Week this week, and had previously won Defensive Player of the Week. It's never happened before, but
he's so ridiculous.
Yeah, played like
140 plays,
36 or something like that. Yeah, whatever. Regardless,
so crazy.
That was my off the board from last weekend. I thought that game was pretty fun. I had it on a second screen.
Yeah, won some money on that. Laid the points against Cincinnati. They handled their business. Honestly, Corey, we had a lot that were like tight games, but we didn't end up getting that kind of crazy upset. A&M being the lower ranked team against LSU was mildly an upset, only by the rankings. But Texas A&M, I believe, was laying 2.5, so they were the Vegas favorite. So really, not a big surprise upset this week. So don't have that big one to really talk about. There were a bunch of close calls, like Texas. You mentioned SMU winning in overtime after blocking a kick. Like there were a number of kind of close calls, but no big upsets this week.
I got one for you.
Oh, this coming weekend.
Okay. I don't want to spoil it, but I got one for you.
All right.
You can guess, but
coming down to Columbia.
I got one for you. I did have another off the board, but because my very dear close friend is here, I don't want to talk about how Texas Tech blew a 17-point lead to TCU. So I won't talk about how Texas Tech blew a 17-point lead to TCU out of respect for my good friend. I'm not gonna talk about that.
Yeah, I will say this though. I'm glad they blew that lead because I don't think they were going to score enough to get my over. I got my over late in that fucking game.
Yeah.
Over was 66. They finished with 69, I believe, was the actual final. 35-34, I believe, was the final score. Yeah. So
did you happen by chance to hear the Ollie Gordon press conference this weekend?
I did not.
So somebody asked Ollie Gordon, who's the Oklahoma State running back. They're winless in the Big 12 this year. People remember I gave him out plus 2,400 to win the Heisman at the end of last season. One of the best running backs in the country, has had an up and down season, right? Somebody asked him, like, are you going to leave the program and get ready for the NFL? And he gave what I thought was an incredible response. And I'll just give a synopsis of it, right? He basically was like, I wasn't raised that way. Like, I signed up to play for this program, and I'm going to continue to play for this program until my time here is finished, right? Whatever that is. He goes, I know that a lot of people do that. He goes, and I quote, he goes, that's just weird behavior. And I get that they're having an awful season. It's not going well in Stillwater whatsoever, but I respect the shit out of him for being like, hey, I committed to play for the school. I'm here to play for Mike Gundy. I'm going to stick with my guys, and we're going to see this out. So I just a little shout out to Ollie Gordon. Don't drink and drive, kids, but maybe be a really, really good running back and stick with your guns and guns up in this case.
Yeah, guns down here.
Yeah, but I feel like you don't get that super often. Just a real honest, wholehearted answer from a kid who says I signed up, so now I'm going to see it through. I thought that was awesome.
For sure. All right, let's transition into week 10 here. We start off with Boise and San Diego State. Boise's laying a big number. Do you think that I got a visitor here. Thank you for the candy. Happy Halloween. Thank you, Pumpkin. You think Boise's gonna get things going here against what appears to be a pretty bad San Diego State team? Years past, this has been a team that would grind you a lot, running game, stiff defense, but not quite the same San Diego State team. Is Genty going to bounce back from the mediocre by his standards game against UNLV?
Last week was Ashton Genty's first game of the season without a 50-yard rush. He's going to have a few of them this week, I have to imagine. So, yeah, I'm laying the points. Yeah. If they pull Ashton Genty early, maybe San Diego State covers. But, he carried the ball 33 times last week. That man is a workhorse.
Yeah.
I don't think he will sit. They pulled him early twice, but it's because they were winning by huge numbers.
Yeah, by 40 and 50.
Yeah. Count me in for the points here. I'm laying them.
Yeah, for sure. Ohio State, Penn State, we're split on this, and I am well aware that I am probably going to fucking throw shit at the wall because James Franklin fucks me again. But Ryan Day is just as fucking bad in these situations. Ryan Day is 0-5 in his career against teams that are 7-0 or better. Ryan Day is 2-6 against top 5 teams in his career. Now, mind you, the numbers on the other side for James Franklin are just, he's 1-16 against top 5 teams. And he's something miserable, like fucking 5-30 against like top 10 teams. It's silly. It's a battle of two coaches that are just atrocious in these games. I'll take 3.5 because I think we're going to see a game that's going to be nip tuck. I'm going to say the same thing I said about the A&M LSU game last week, which was wrong, but I'm hoping I'm right this time. I think this game ends on the foot of a kicker. Give me more than a field goal at 3.5. I'll take that, and I'm going to sweat it out until the game starts and the Penn State fills their shoes, because that's what James Franklin coach teams do. But I'm going to take the 3.5 because I think it's going to be that tight. I don't know that Penn State's going to win this outright. I won't give you that as my pick. I'll take the 3.5. The floor is yours. Defend your Ohio State pick.
James Franklin is 1-9 against Ohio State. I don't know who's playing quarterback for them.
Yeah.
And it's a noon game. So, I'm going to take the team that I think has the better roster, and I know has the better quarterback because they're not planning on playing two of them, and I'm just going to kind of ride with them. I don't feel great. I felt better once I saw your pick being Penn State, I'll tell you that much. I know your history of betting on Penn State, and I feel pretty good now.
It's not good.
Yeah. We make these picks for the show. Full disclosure, I do not bet all of my picks.
No, I do not either.
I will not be betting this game.
I will not bet this one. Do not bet this because I picked it.
Yeah, don't. You can look at our records. We are both well over 500.
Yes.
But do not bet this game, people.
Agreed. I won't be, so you shouldn't.
Yeah, we are about as degenerate as it gets.
For sure. Yeah, this could be a battle of who wants to lose it less, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I could see that happening for sure. I think we could see a pretty bad beatdown by Ohio State. Penn State's history says so, right? It just does. So we'll see. I'm probably going to be licking my wounds and cursing fucking James Franklin next week. How did I fool myself into thinking it again?
It's going to be tough for James Franklin to get out of town in a hurry, though, because he has to take an hour-long bus ride to the airport.
That joke, that line will never die. That is so silly.
I love it.
So silly.
I love it.
Oh, good Lord. Duke, Miami. You're taking the points with Duke again this week. On the road in Coral Gables, I'm going to lay the points with Miami. 21.5 makes me a little bit hesitant because of the hook. I could see this being a 35-14 game, and I lose by the hook pretty easily. I just think Miami right now, they've got it rolling. So I'm gonna stay on the Miami train, but I totally understand why you bet Duke. I think that Manny Diaz has got something going there. Plus the hook. If this was 20.5, I'd feel a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel great about the pick. I'll be totally honest with you. I've said multiple times that I'm not going to pick against Miami, but here I am picking against Miami. it has a lot to do with the kickoff window. It's a noon game.
Yeah.
Like similar, it not as often, but similarly to these off night games, like weird things can happen in early games, right? Like
Early
I
window.
feel way more convicted taking home teams during night games than I do.
It's not the same environment.
No, especially in Coral Gables where they don't really have a home field advantage to begin with.
Right.
You know, that's a lot of points. Wouldn't be shocked if I win by the hook. You know, like that's just a lot of points, man. It's a lot of points, especially for this late in the season.
Yeah.
Excuse me. After we watched Duke force 6 turnovers last weekend against SMU.
Yep.
Like there is turnover potential. There's wacky stuff that could happen. It's a lot of points.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Ole Miss, Arkansas. I'm still on my not betting Ole Miss train here, but I do have faith in Arkansas. I think what Sam and Bobby got going on down there is good. 7 points at home. I'll take all of them. I could see Ole Miss winning by 4 or 5 here in like a 28-24 type of game. So yeah, I'm gonna take 7 points with the home team.
Okay. I made this pick counting on that's incorrect. Oklahoma is playing an FCS team this week. It's Maine and Oklahoma would be the FCS game of the weekend because there's an FBS team playing in it. Yeah, no, I'm making this pick counting on Trey Harris playing.
Yeah.
If Trey Harris does not play, bet Arkansas. But this line tells me that he's not going to play, which is unfortunate.
That's sort of what I was thinking too. If he plays, I probably lose this, honestly. Yeah. Most likely lose it.
I agree.
Yeah. It is 8:13 p.m. here on the East Coast, and OU still sucks.
Yep.
Army, Air Force. Air Force is not very good. Army's been putting up points like crazy. I just think that this is a pretty big gap in talent, a pretty big gap in what we've seen in terms of product on the field. I could see Army covering this pretty easily, winning by maybe even 5 touchdowns. Honestly, Air Force is really struggling, and Army's got it fucking rolling. This isn't Notre Dame, so in terms of tripping blocks, the only thing I could potentially see is this is a look ahead to Notre Dame potentially, but I just don't think so. I don't think Air Force can stay with them.
No, certainly not. This could be like a 42-7 game, and we just come back on here and talk about how much OU sucks. Like that could be exactly what happens.
Yep, for sure.
I mean, our Air Force still sucks. Sorry.
This for me, I don't know if you agree, but this for me is the most confusing line of the weekend. Illinois getting 3 points at home against Minnesota. Now, I understand what Illinois looked like last week against Oregon, right? I also understand what Oregon is, right? So I don't know that I get this 3 points. I will probably have a ticket money line for Illinois this weekend, unless you tell me Altmaier's not playing.
Yep.
Which I something freak would have to happen between now and then. So I just don't know that I understand Illinois getting 3 points. I'm going to take all 3 of them, but I'm also like I said, I'm going to have a ticket money line Illinois this weekend.
Strangest line of the weekend to me for all the reasons you said. I understand what we just watched with Oregon and Illinois. I still think that Luke Altmaier is good. I think that Bielema has got those guys in a good spot. I've said it multiple times. Illinois is a team that drags you down and then asks Luke Altmaier to make 1 or 2 plays a game, and he almost does, or he does that almost every time, minus the Oregon game, right?
Yeah.
I just think Illinois is better. I don't necessarily. I get that Minnesota beat Southern Cal, but Southern Cal's not that good.
Yeah.
So and then they beat Maryland. So I just
who also isn't very good.
Yeah, I don't. It just maybe there's an injury I don't know about because I full disclosure did not do extensive research on the Minnesota Illinois matchup this weekend. There are other things that were taking my attention on the board, but maybe Vegas knows something that we don't know. That line makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, USC has lost to Maryland also since since losing to Minnesota. Yeah, they lost to Penn State in a tight game, but they
The
lost
Michael
to
Jordan of Kyle Shanahan's went to College Park and lost.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't know. This is a very confusing line for me. Illinois, I would run to the window if you can with this line. Oregon, Michigan. Now, I know they're headed to the big house, but 14.5. Oregon is just that much better. Michigan still doesn't have a quarterback. I don't know when they're going to figure out. Hopefully, it's a recruit coming in or a transfer, whatever it is for next year. It's bad. It's bad up there in Ann Arbor. If they can do what you said, Oregon has a little bit of exposure to. If Michigan can just run the ball down their throats, they can probably slow this thing down enough to cover the 14.5. But I just don't see it. I just don't see it with Oregon. They're explosive on offense. I know Michigan's defense is still good, but I don't think their defense is better than Ohio State's. And we saw Oregon score 32 points against Ohio State. I don't think Michigan can score more than 20 against Oregon. So I'm just looking at it like the calculus just adds up. I'm going to lay these points.
Yeah, the quarterback who started for Michigan last week just retired.
Yeah,
over the week. I don't know if people. I don't know. I'm not sure how many people saw that.
Tough look.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. He had I think it was his 5th concussion or something like that. I get it. Best of luck, Jack Tuttle. Go on, do your thing, be great. Yeah, Michigan's bad, dude. They're gonna have 2 top 10 draft picks on that defense, and they're bad. It's tough. They sold their soul to win a national title, and they got it.
They got it. They also got a documentary about it.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Yeah, not ideal for them. Give me some combination of Tez Johnson, Jordan James, Evan Stewart, and Dylan Gabriel, and I feel pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it doesn't help that Michigan got Pete Carrolled by Jim Harbaugh either. So.
Yep.
Florida, Georgia, 16.5. I hesitated very slightly on this one. 16.5 is a lot. It's a rivalry game. I know Florida's going to get up for it. We've also seen Florida play in spurts better football than they were at the beginning of the season. We talked a lot about how tough their schedule has been, and they've kind of, I don't want to say weathered the storm because it's not been good, but they still are competing. And take that at face value for whatever you think it's worth, but I did hesitate on this line a bit. I don't know that I trust Georgia to blow out a team like Florida either. The game against Texas, you said it earlier when we were talking about Texas, that game was kind of an anomaly on both sides of the ball. But in the end, I think Georgia has a little more class. This is probably another one I'm not going to wager this weekend, though.
Yeah.
16.5 a lot.
Yeah, it's a big number. I have a little bit of a hot take, I think, on this game.
Okay.
I think the best quarterback in this game will not be wearing a University of Georgia uniform.
Okay.
I think DJ Lagway is a better – he certainly is a more talented quarterback than Carson Beck.
Sure.
I think he's the better quarterback too.
Where is DJ Lagway playing next year? Do you think he sticks around in Florida because they're going to keep Billy Napier or?
Well, so here's what I know about DJ Lagway. He's really fucking good. He's super talented. Let me put it that way. He's very raw, but he's super talented. Also, justifying my Georgia pick coming off a bye, they have a really, really good coach. So DJ Lagway is from the state of Texas. I believe he's from College Station or the next county over. I know that Texas A&M may be in the market for an elite college quarterback next season.
They might be.
And I know that they have endless amounts of funds. I don't know if Billy Napier is going to be the coach at Florida next season.
Right.
So on the day before Halloween 2024, I'm going to say that DJ Lagway plays at Florida next year.
Okay.
I'm gonna say he sticks around. Don't be surprised though if he is playing for the Aggies next season.
Yeah, so he's from Conroe, and I had to look on the map because I don't
Yeah.
know geography in Texas very well, but he's kind of like equidistant from Houston and College Station. It's like but yeah, College Station, he's kind of in their backyard where he played high school at Willis High School.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely not going to University of Houston.
Oh,
I'll tell you that.
There he is. Yep.
Nailed it.
There it is. I didn't even have to look it up. Raul had the answer for us.
Yeah. Well, he'll be talking about him in like 3 years on the Blitz.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Maybe when he's playing for the Cowboys. They might be the market for a quarterback soon. God, it's bad up there. But
they've Dak,
this is a college football show.
True.
Yeah, hook 'em, right? Onward, upward. Iowa State, Texas Tech. You're going to take the points with Texas Tech. I understand it. I am going to lay the points with Iowa State because I don't know how much shell shock factor there is from last week for Texas Tech. Now, college kids, maybe you can brush it off and turn it off, but Iowa State looks pretty good this year. I like the way that they've been able to kind of control the tempo of games. If this becomes a shootout, though, Texas Tech is going to easily cover. If Iowa State's defense can find a way to turn the ball over once or twice, I think Iowa State covers this number pretty comfortably.
So my less than professional analysis of why I took this pick from Texas Tech. I looked at the over-under. The projected over-under this game is 56.5. That feels high for an Iowa State game. If you tell me that this game is going to go over or even approach the over, I feel very, very good about Texas Tech covering for the spread.
Yep, I agree. And if this thing gets over 56, I'm absolutely going to lose this pick.
We know that Texas Tech can score the ball. They may not be good, but we know their offense is good. I tell you that right now.
Yeah, for sure.
What is it? Morton? Is that the quarterback's name? Yeah, Morton for Texas Tech. I apologize for not knowing the first name off the top of my head, but Morton. I mean, he can sling the rock. Like that is never an issue in Lubbock.
Nothing has changed in Lubbock.
Yeah, like the spirit of Mike Leach lives on forever in the city of Lubbock, Texas.
Absolutely. Fucking legend. Indiana goes on the road in conference to Michigan State, heading up to the great state of Michigan to face Sparty. 7.5, I thought felt a little low, so I have confidence in this pick, but I'm quizzical about why Vegas set this line less than I expected to see something like 10.5, maybe even as high as like 13.5. But it gave me pause when I looked at this line and saw 7.5. I was like, what does Vegas know that I don't about Michigan State and how terrible they are at football the last few years? So curious your thoughts on this one. How do you feel about your Indiana pick? We're on the same side. I'm just curious your thoughts, how confident you are.
I'm pretty confident that they're going to cover. I might be able to shed some light as to why the line is only 7.5. Vegas, maybe listening to our show, where just a few weeks ago you declared Michigan State feisty.
Yeah,
you did say that. Jonathan Smith making them. Yeah, but they have Jonathan Smith.
Yeah.
So
unique name, Jonathan Smith.
It's as spicy as it gets.
I don't know that they've got the horses to run with what Indiana's doing right now. The way they're able to. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's going to be a rock fight, and Vegas knows.
Yeah, I mean, like, if they're 4-4, like they're not bad, right? Like they are exactly feisty.
Yeah,
they're not a good football team.
Nope.
But they're the home team, and they can be feisty, right? Like, Indiana going on the road as the hunted instead of the hunter. I mean, maybe there's a chance here. That's all I'm saying. There's a road where there's a road map for Indiana to have a letdown week, because I think next week
Is it
No,
Michigan?
next week is Michigan. The week after is Ohio State.
Yeah, I think it's Michigan. Yeah, Michigan next week. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there's a path, right? Maybe Connor Rourke doesn't play again.
Yeah.
And the backup is not as good on the road as he was at home. I know you could talk me into to Michigan State covering. This game ends like on a field goal or something.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I was a little surprised. That's all when I first
Sure.
saw the line, which made me question what does Vegas know that I don't, right? Whenever that happens, I'm like, God, where's my head at that I'm that far off on it, yeah. Hopefully, yeah. Rest in peace, Mike Leach, legend. Yep. We got a graphic we used back when he passed away. We'll bring it back up again, but absolute national treasure, man, national treasure. His interviews, bar none, the best interviews by coaches ever. He was phenomenal. Offering unsolicited wedding advice to a reporter was one of the. What a moment! What a moment!
Love Mike Leach. Love Mike Leach.
For sure. Kansas State, Houston. I'm going to take the points with Houston because last week made me question whether I can trust Kansas State to blow teams out. They like to keep games close, and I think they're going to do it again on the road against Houston. 2 touchdowns, I'll take it. I might lose by the hook here in like a 28-14 game, but I'm going to take 13.5 with Houston, who I agree with our initial assessment of Houston that they're not a great team, not a good team, maybe the worst team in the Big 12, but I don't know that I can trust Kansas State right now to go in and beat a team on the road by 2 touchdowns.
Sure. I feel the opposite of that. I think that K-State can absolutely go in and beat a team by 2 touchdowns, especially a Houston team that's not good. I look at this more as a bounce back spot for Kansas State, even though they did not lose last week.
They struggled.
Exactly. This feels like hey, we're coming down the home stretch. We're trying to win the Big 12. We have to win all of these games.
Yep.
That's how I view it. I'm in on Avery Johnson. I've been in on him for like 3 weeks now, 4 weeks now. I'm in on Avery Johnson.
Actually sling the ball down the field.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Kansas State. I like Avery Johnson. At 13.5, I'm going to take it, and I'll probably be here fucking Wednesday. Like, what the fuck was I thinking? Cougars suck. A&M, South Carolina. I'm sorry. I am on the other side of this. I'm going to get out of the way, though. I like the defensive line, and I'm going to get out of the way.
A&M has a really good defensive line. I don't disagree. How many quarterbacks do they have?
0.
Oh, okay. Who has the best pass rusher in the SEC?
Not Texas A&M. The other team in this game.
For which school does the nation's sack leader play?
That same school.
Who has the best true freshman pass rusher in the country?
That same school.
Okay. Which team leads the SEC in interceptions this year?
That same school.
Oh, okay.
But if Marcel Reed plays, they're not going to be throwing the ball.
What time is the game?
It is. They're going to be all juiced up.
And where is the game?
In Columbia.
Oh, okay. Okay, those are just questions I had just off the top of my head. I knew nothing about this game coming into it, but now I know that the best defense in the SEC plays in Columbia, South Carolina, and they're playing at home at night against a team that plays 2 quarterbacks sometimes. And as we all know that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. So that's fine. Also, Marcel Reed might weigh less than me. Yeah, it's a little.
He's so small.
Yeah, we have a middle linebacker named Debo, and he's really big. And
what is it with Debo's and going to Columbia?
I don't know, but it's great. Keep them coming, buddy. Keep them coming.
Players.
They're incredible. They're incredible. Last year we had a linebacker named Stone Blanton.
Yeah.
Like, it was Debo Williams and Stone Blanton. And I was like, oh my God. Just like, those are linebacker names through and through. The little child. Yeah. So I waffled so hard on this pick because my heart says take South Carolina. My head says take A&M. I cannot believe this is a 2.5 point line. I don't know if Vegas has watched South Carolina play offense this year, but dear God, is it bad? Our offensive line is terrible.
I feel like Vegas probably is projecting this thing as like a 15-13 type game.
Yeah, well, I don't even know what the total is on this game.
I actually didn't even. I need
44 and a half.
Okay, so a 20,
it's like a 23-21
or something like that.
Yeah.
Feels right.
South Carolina is going to struggle to score. We're going to have to rely on our defense to keep us in this game and then hope that we can find an explosive somewhere. Throw the ball to Nick Harbor. Please, dear God, throw the ball to Nick Harbor. Please, dear God, throw the ball to Nick Harbor. I can send you clips if you would like to see how it's done. Nobody is better at throwing the ball to Nick Harbor than me.
I'll send you his Heisman Trophy.
Yes, like, no, I think that you are probably on the correct side here, but my heart will not let me pick against them because it is a night game. I know that Willie B is going to be absolutely on fire. There are going to be big-time recruits there Saturday. The unfortunate thing is that every time we have a big-time home game, we fucking lose. We are coming off a bye. I don't know if you remember this. The last time we came off a bye, we had a home game against Ole Miss and got absolutely rocked. So my heart says to go with South Carolina. My head says to go with Texas A&M. And I am nothing if not a homer, so I'm going with my heart here.
I like it. I have mild to no confidence in either side of this. It's really where I was. I waffled very hard on this one. Will not be wagering this one because I feel like if South Carolina is able to turn the ball over and maybe even score defensively, that might be all she wrote for an A&M team that I don't anticipate scoring a ton. 44 feels high. I might take the under on that. Imagine that in a college football game that doesn't feature Iowa.
Yeah.
I might take the under because I think both of these defenses are tremendous. And you mentioned all of the statistical reasons why South Carolina's defense is tremendous. I don't know. Can we trust either offense, right? And if SC is able to turn them over, or if A&M is able to turn over SC, right, that could be the turnover margin could be the most important aspect of this game because I think it's that close. And I get why the Vegas number is 2.5. I understand why you don't why you're questioning it because it feels like this should be like something much different than that. But I trust both defenses and I don't know how much I can trust both offenses. If Marcel Reed plays, I think the turnover margin is a little less of a concern because I think they're going to be running it quite a bit and just kind of just choking the clock essentially. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a great game, though. I think it's going to be an awesome game to watch, especially if you're a fan of defense because these defenses are the fucking real deal.
Yeah. I will be leaving a wedding reception early to go watch this game. I have been – this would be my third wedding of the season. I am not staying to the end this time. I will be leaving early.
You've been a trooper so far this wedding season.
It's been every other week for fucking 6 weeks now.
I know.
Oh my God.
Crazy.
I will be following it up though. I will be following it up though next weekend with a trip to Philly, and I will be sitting in a sports book and watching college football.
Love it. All right. Onward to Louisville, Clemson. Clemson given 10.5. A lot more to say about Louisville. They've fallen off pretty precipitously here in the back half of the season a little bit. Clemson's offense, while I don't know if we can trust it even still, despite the fact that they've been playing better offense for the better part of 6 weeks, if they're going to continue to score, I don't think Louisville can score with them against that Clemson defense.
Yeah. So like the line here or the total is 63.5.
Yeah.
That tells me that they think Louisville's offense is going to be
I don't know.
effective against this Clemson defense, which is
It's
a
a weird
little.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel fairly confident about Clemson covering that 10.5 because their
Yeah.
offense has been after like week one, the Georgia game, their offense has been really, really good, right?
Yeah.
Like Garrett Riley has finally kind of unlocked Cade Klubnik, the runner. I don't even know if
Yeah.
I'm not sure if unlocked is the right word. He's kind of like allowed him to run the ball instead of forcing him to throw the ball, right? Same with Riley Leonard almost at Notre Dame.
Yep.
So this is like a 17-point margin I could see. I love weddings. I love weddings from the end of April till the first weekend, till Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
That's wedding season.
Yeah.
Do it indoor because here in Virginia in the summertime it gets really hot. That's wedding season. Don't do it in the fall. Don't do it on Masters weekend. Don't during it March Madness. Like I can work around the NHL and NBA playoffs. I can figure that out. Those games are easier to catch up on. Not anti-wedding, dude. I love love. I love love. Okay.
Love.
I love love. The Clemson line is too small.
Yeah, I agree. Tennessee, Kentucky, 16.5 here. Rivalry game. But for me, Kentucky can get up and give you the business if you're Georgia. In Tennessee, I don't trust it. Like, give me Tennessee probably rolling pretty good here. 16.5 is 3 touchdowns. I think is a good number here. So 16.5 just isn't enough.
Is the is the Kentucky win over Ole Miss? Is that the most confounding game of the year?
I think it probably is. Because Kentucky's been really, really bad with the exception of Georgia outside of that win against, I shouldn't say really, really bad, but they've been bad outside of the win against Ole Miss and sticking with Georgia, who we had questions about at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not been great for Kentucky. And that is a very, because it like, they beat them handily too, right? Like it wasn't like a fluky, oh, they got to bounce late in the game and they found a way to win. Like they
controlled the game.
Sort of dominated Ole Miss.
Yeah, I don't. That's just like Kentucky's not good. Cup it up, baby. Mrs. Officer, what's up? Yeah, no, Kentucky is not good. I don't know if Tennessee is. I know Tennessee's good. I don't know if Tennessee's really good.
Right.
The line is a little larger than I would like it to be, but the home team at night, you know, I love laying points at night at home. Yeah, so it's just I don't feel super convicted about taking Tennessee here. Obviously, I got my pick in late. You had to remind me for this one specifically. But because I was waffling on so many other ones, it slipped out of my mind. I think the line is exactly where it should be. You know what I mean? Like I think that Vegas really hit this one on the head. Kentucky's not good. Tennessee's pretty good. I don't know. I don't have a very convicted lean.
Are we ever like eventually going to see Nico kind of break out and be the $7 million NIL guy?
Next year? Can I say next year?
Maybe. Maybe.
I don't like. He's still technically a freshman.
Yeah.
So I think also similar to the situation it's obviously not as bad, but in Florida State, they've had a lot of talent leave in the last few seasons.
They have.
And because they're not Ohio State, I guess Oregon at this point, you know, Georgia, Alabama, they don't reload as quickly. I think that Josh Heupel is running a great program, and they're going to probably become a program like that, where every single year they're in the mix in the portal and competing for SEC titles. I don't think they're there yet. This may be the offseason that propels them to that position within the conference. and Nico may be the quarterback to get them there. But aside from Dylan Sampson in that running game, you can kind of bottle up the passing attack that this team has.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no Jalen Hyatts, no Cedric Tillmans, etc.
Yeah.
Speaking of, shout out Cedric Tillman, breakout game against the Ravens this past weekend with Mr. Crab Legs himself under center.
Yep.
Yep. And we finish out with SMU hosting Pitt. For me, I did waffle a bit on this because as we talked about early in the show with Pitt, Syracuse, I do think Pitt is playing very good football right now. If this game was in Pitt, I would lay the points with Pitt. I don't know how many points it would be. Sometimes college home and home can swing a lot more than like the NFL. It's typically like 3 for home field. You get kind of that swing. College, it can swing a bit more. If Pitt was favored at home, I think I probably would lay the points with Pitt at home. SMU being at home, 7.5 does feel like a lot, but I just think they've kind of figured it out at the quarterback position, and I think they're going to be able to do enough for a Pitt team that's going on the road into an unfamiliar environment too, right? Like they've never played down there in Dallas at SMU. So give me that in terms of those two factors, and I'll lay the points with SMU.
Yeah, I agree. Home game at night. Love laying the points. I love taking night games that like for the home team, even if they're underdogs. I don't imagine that Pitt will force 5 interceptions again from the SMU quarterback, like they got last week from Kyle McCord.
Fucking A.
Yeah, the defense is the better side of the ball for Pitt. The offense is the better side of the ball for SMU. I don't expect SMU to turn the ball over 6 times, so I feel pretty confident in the pick here.
Yeah, I like it. What do you got off the board in week 10, bud?
So we talked 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I forget, the weeks are blending together at this point. Utah lost a game to a guy whose name was Scataboo.
Yeah.
I also talked a little bit earlier tonight about a guy whose name is Ollie Gordon Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Those two gentlemen both play running back. Scataboo plays for Arizona State. Ollie Gordon plays for Oklahoma State. They are playing each other in Stillwater at night this weekend, the darkest sky in America.
Yeah.
Stillwater, Oklahoma. They are playing each other this weekend. That game should be a lot of fun so long as the offenses flourish, right? Oklahoma State has a chance to kind of lay an egg here. They are home dogs. They're 3-point dogs. So if you feel strongly about Ollie Gordon kind of hyping up his boys, saying he's going to be here for the rest of the year, maybe go ahead and take those 3 points they're giving you at home with Oklahoma State. Let's see. Anything else really jump out at me? Not immediately. I mean, North Carolina and Florida State are playing. North Carolina is a team that scores a ton of points, and Florida State's a team that has a really bad defense. If you're interested in points, maybe go ahead and take like the team total over for North Carolina. I think that the best games this weekend are the ranked matchups. So honestly, Syracuse is playing Virginia Tech at home. Like, if you want an early game to watch, maybe that's the one. If you don't care about Ohio State, Penn State for some reason, and you want to be a real football sicko and watch a dome game instead of something at Happy Valley. This week I think that the best games on the slate are the ranked games.
Yeah. One that kind of caught my eye off the board, Auburn's laying 7 against Vanderbilt. I know Auburn's at home, but 7 feels like a lot for a Vanderbilt team that's carrying a lot of momentum. Even with the loss to Texas, the way they played against Texas, they're going to keep holding that as momentum, I think. So for me, I think I'm going to take those 7 points with Vanderbilt. Even if they lose, I think it's going to be a tight game. So that was one that kind of jumped out to me off the board. Maine, Oklahoma, really curious to see how that one plays out. Maine, Chip Kelly coached at Maine, and they were a bit of an FCS powerhouse for a few years. Not so much anymore. But it is it's always interesting this late in the season to get these FCS, FBS matchups. Oklahoma probably lays the lumber against an inferior Maine opponent, but I do love, because usually we get them early in the year, right? It's those tune-up games. FCS teams come in, they get paid $1 million, and then they go back home licking their wounds after a 60-point defeat. This is interesting kind of late in the season. It's not necessarily end of the season, but in the middle parts of the season, we don't always see these FCS, FBS matchups. It's interesting. I'll keep an eye on it. If Maine ends up being a live dog late in this game, I'll put it on one of the screens. But just interesting to see those FCS, FBS matchups late.
Yeah. To your point about the Auburn game, Diego Pavia has already gone into Auburn and won.
Yep.
He took New Mexico State last year down to Jordan-Hare Stadium and won on the Plains.
Yep.
Last one for me off the board. Tulane plays a standalone game Thursday night. They're 14.5-point favorites on the road at Charlotte. Jerry Richardson Stadium. I get, there's an NFL game that night too, but it's a college football show. Who cares about the NFL?
Yeah.
Tulane 6-2 against the spread this year for those keeping track.
Yeah. Charlotte, not very good.
Nope.
It was either Army or Navy. I can't remember which one, but a couple weeks ago, fucking beat the brakes off them. So
they do have, this is the guy. Their coach. His name is Biff Poggi. Charlotte's head coach's name is Biff Poggi, and he wears like oversized t-shirts. He's a large gentleman. Wears oversized t-shirts, cut off sleeves, and like deep V cuts. Oh, dude, if you're looking for peak like coach aesthetic, Charlotte, Biff Poggi is your guy.
Biff Poggi. Love it. Who was that coach at Kansas? Now his name is eluding me, but
Les Miles.
No, real big dude.
Bill Self.
No.
They
had a football coach that was one of those, and he was a very, very large gentleman, and he always had like eclectic outfits sometimes too. So
you're talking about Charlie Weiss?
No, Charlie Weiss is who came to mind, but God, why can't I think of it? Mangino, Mark Mangino.
Oh yeah.
Yep. He was a fun guy.
That's a good one too.
But that's what your description of Biff reminded me of was Mark Mangino.
Yeah.
All right, bud. Well, hey, good episode. Another good week. We got some interesting matchups in the top 25. As you mentioned, I think the best matchups of the weekend are in the top 25. We've got a separator game, Ohio State, Penn State. And we've got an interesting, fun matchup at night down in Columbia. I know you'll be tuned in and locked in on that. A couple of great defenses locking horns and going head-to-head there. But for Bentley and everybody else here at Backyard Sports, this has been another episode of Tailgate Trash Talk. We are out.
Max